allemaal. Altijd heel vreemd dat we elkaar niet kunnen zien. Maar dat blijft natuurlijk deze manier van werken. Heel erg fijn dat we vandaag in de 4 sessies die we hebben... ook een stapje kunnen maken naar buiten. Want soms helpt het om even van buiten naar binnen te kijken... en dan te ontdekken... van eigenlijk ook om jezelf te kunnen afvragen... waarom doen we de dingen zoals we ze doen... En helpt het ons ook misschien hopelijk verder in de gesprekken en de verkenning die wij met elkaar hebben. En waarom dan naar Denemarken? Wij zijn heel erg blij dat we dat in ieder geval kunnen doen. We zijn natuurlijk in de transitie en de transformatie veel gaan kijken naar Denemarken. En daarbij ook belangrijk om aan te geven van... ook daar is het systeem niet ideaal. Want ik denk dat ideale systeem... en de manier van werken hebben we nog niet gevonden. Maar het helpt gewoon soms om je te verhouden, om uit te wisselen met collega's die eigenlijk tegen dezelfde vraagstukken aanlopen. Maar vanuit een andere context dat benaderen en misschien ook andere oplossingen hebben. En dat geeft dus heel veel. Dus ik wil jullie ook echt vragen vandaag. Heb een open mind. Ga niet proberen al van wat je hoort te zeggen van... oh, dat lijkt hierop of dat lijkt hierop. Luister naar en neem het mee. En zoals Ineke al zei, stel ook je vragen in de chat. Wat we gaan doen zometeen is eerst een algemene introductie horen. En daarna ook heel specifiek horen van iemand die direct met de gezinnen werkt over hoe ze dat doet. En daar kun je dus ook de vragen over stellen. We hebben wel bedacht dat we eerst het verhaal laten horen. Dus we beginnen met het verhaal over de algemene introductie. En dan ruimen we 10 minuten in voor vragen. En daarna doen we op diezelfde manier. Zoals ik al zei, we gaan luisteren naar Denemarken. Denemarken lijkt in heel veel opzichten op Nederland, maar het systeem is heel anders. Ik heb in de chat een document gezet voor degenen die wat meer achtergrondinformatie willen. Wat belangrijk denk ik is om in achterhoofd te houden, is dat in Denemarken het systeem al veel langer gedecentraliseerd is naar de 98 gemeenten. En dat die echt ook heel erg in een soort whole system approach werken. En dat ga je ook horen. Maar wat we nu gaan horen is echt ook wel een interventie daar bij de gezinnen waar het niet goed gaat. Want dat is denk ik, jullie weten dat als geen ander. We kunnen natuurlijk heel veel doen in de basis en heel veel in de preventie. Maar er blijven altijd gezinnen waar gewoon heel veel extra steun nodig is. So now I'm going to switch to English because Trine and Mette have been sitting there wondering what the hell we're saying in Dutch. And I would really like to welcome Trine Gaardsoo and Mette Simonsen today to be with us. And I think for them it's as exciting as for us because I think it's also for you to do the first time to do this in English. What they're going to tell us, they both work for the Method Center, which you could compare to being an organization that is being commissioned by the municipalities. So in that sense, it would be similar to what we have in the Netherlands. And they work very closely with the municipalities in working with the families that are at risk. Why we invited them to speak today is because they're going to speak about a method which is called Familie Netwerk, which is very close to the transformation thinking that we have in the Netherlands, where we want to work much more together with the families and the strength that the families have. And Ineke and I were able to hear that story a year and a half ago in Jutland in Denmark. And we were very impressed about the underlying principles in the way of working with families. So we thought it would be very interesting to give Trine and Mette the opportunity to share that with us today. So I'm going to stop speaking and I would like to give the floor to Trine Gaardsoo, who I think is going to start to take us through through Familie Netwerk. Welcome and thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We are very honored that you have joined in today and are interested in hearing a little bit about our work here in Denmark. And now I'm going to sort of give an overall introduction to Familie Netwerk and the clinical foundation of Familie Netwerk, what we do, who is our target group, what the relevant research and theory we are basing our treatment on. And then I'm going to give you a quick introduction to the fundamental core elements of our treatment models. And afterwards, Mette is going to spend most of our time today actually in speaking about a specific positive case for you to get an idea about how we're actually working in Familie Netwerk. Good. So just a little bit about the history, just wanting to check in. Everybody can see the slideshow? All's good? Thank you. Good. Well, Familie Netwerk started in January 2019, so we were actually quite young. And we base the vision on actually wanting to create Familie Netwerk on many years of experience in working in evidence-based programs and working with diverse methods, some manual-based, some more eclectic, but the Method Center is actually the owner of the treatment model Familie Netwerk, but and currently we have 3 municipalities in Denmark that are involved. That means 7 teams of 3 to 5 therapists, and then we have supervisors and program managers, etc., connected to each team. It's very much a co-creation between the Method Center and the municipal, meaning that all the seminars, all the educational materials, everything we actually do, we focus on trying to develop all our tools in collaboration with the therapists and with the supervisors to make sure that it fits what they need in their specific work with the families. It's a very intense treatment model, meaning that the therapists only work in 3 to 5 families at a time, and they have an approximate time period that is 6 to 18 months. So it's a very intense treatment where they can meet up several times a week in the homes of the families, and they have, in addition to that, a lot of system meetings with school, with the extended families, with social worker, etc. So what we see now is that we also have this hotline thinking in our program. That means that our families can get a hold of us 24/7. And that's very, very important for our work, because when we're actually really starting to do the interventions and creating the change that can come in escalation in behavior, for instance, safety issues, that means that they have to be able to get in contact with a therapist that know their safety plan and can guide them through whatever they need help to problem solve. And why would you want to use Familie Netwerk? Well, basically, we are drawing heavily on a lot of science that is actually focusing on the fact that we can see that if you want to be efficient with working with kids and adolescents, you have to not have a too individualistic focus. You have to have a broader spectrum. You have to have a focus on not necessarily using too much standardized manuals, one-size-fits-all thinking, but more working on the youth ecology, risk and protective factors, and the adults and the system surrounding the youth and the children. And that's because a lot of children and youth are not in a position where they're mature enough to actually have enough inner control to sort of drive their own development. So they need the adults and the context and the surrounding to do the primary work when we have to create positive change. So, and the purpose of Familie Netwerk is to change a negative life course to a more positive life course. And that could be with kids. I'm going to say a little bit more about that just in a minute, with both internalizing and externalizing problems. So what we basically try to focus on is some of the things mentioned here to improve family relation. If we have safety issues, conflict issues, that's where we'll focus heavily. To create a more stable schooling connection to pro-social spare time activities. And also, if we have risk behaviors like substance abuse or criminal activities, we'll also focus heavily on trying to problem solve that in close collaboration with parents and the surrounding systems around the youth. And Mette is, in her case, going to speak much more in detail about how and why we do this. But it's all got to do with trying to strengthen the protective, positive factors in the youth life and minimize and eliminate the risk factors. That's the core thinking and problem-solving focus we have all the time. Furthermore, we have this overarching goal of trying to create as much generalization as possible. And what does that mean? Well, that means that if we stand in front of and are the creators of change as professionals, we have in many cases a problem of generalization, meaning will that positive development last when we exit? The more we can get the youth himself or herself and the family and the systems to drive their own development, to be the one actually changing the things that are problematic, the more we have worked for creating a generalization in our treatment, because we are only there a short while. Professionals are temporary. So the more we can have the youth, the family, the natural ecology being in charge of their own development and change, the more generalization we see as well in the work we do. And we have very few, actually. Our target group is between 6 and 17 years old. And we have some criteria for inclusion and exclusion in our program. Our inclusion criteria is that we need to have kids and youth referred that are either living at home in foster care or is going to move back home, because we need caregivers and adults to collaborate with, because we have a primary focus on the adults and the caregivers. And we only have a few exclusion criteria, and that is if the youth is suicidal or psychotic and needs hospitalization. But after stabilization, it is actually possible for us to also enroll kids that have been suicidal before and is now more stabilized. There are 2 roads in Denmark to getting referred to Family Network. One is that the family can contact the social services and say, we have a problem, our kid is out of control, or he is in his room and we can't motivate him to go to school. And then they can contact the social services and ask for help. And then the social worker, if the social worker think that this is a heavy problem case, can refer to Family Network if Family Network is available in that municipality. Otherwise, they'll be referred to other existing services. Another road can be that the systems have a high concern level, and therefore will assign a social worker that will investigate the concerns of the systems surrounding the families. And if the social worker is confident that this is something that needs treatment, this is something that is severe, then he or she can refer to Family Network. But in either case, we have a very high focus on, in Family Network, that we need engagement from the family. We need to make them feel safe and to be able to see the motivation and the what's in it for them. But we'll speak more about that. Mette will, in her case, also talk about the beginning of the treatment that she has chosen as her case, and what she did with the lack of engagement. So I'm not going to say that much more about it. But I will say that when we're talking about problem behavior in Family and Network, we see it very much not as something within the individual. We see it as something that is a signal, something that is telling us that there is a failure to match between the individual and the society surrounding the individual, meaning that there's something in the parenting, in the school, in the environments around the kids that we need to fix first and foremost, so that it matches the strength and the needs of the kid better. That's how we primarily understand problem behavior. So we try to take another understanding instead of, it's not that we don't acknowledge diagnosis, ADHD, autism, etc. But we will first and foremost focus on trying to adjusting the environment to the kid instead of giving individual treatment. So what problem behaviors do we see? Well, we, for instance, see conflict in the home, overuse of social media, social withdrawal, substance use, truancy, runaway behavior, a lot of different kinds of problems. And these would be the typical problem behavior areas that we will work with. And the case will also get back to some of these areas. And these are the systems that we will typically be involved in. That could be the school, the family's network, family's friends, youth friends, friends' family, doctor, psychiatry, contact person. And it will be the job of the family and network therapist in collaboration with his or her supervisor to do everything they can to engage systems so that they pull in the same direction and have knowledge about the specific interventions and will be able to support and not by accident undermine whatever interventions that are done in the specific systems. So this is very, very much an ecological mindset that says that everybody that have an influence needs to be involved if we are to change this life course or development that this kid have. So what we basically often see is that we have these typical contributing factors to the development of problem behavior. Within the family system, it could be on a parent level, lack of monitoring, lack of engagement, a high level of conflict, inconsistent parenting, lack of rules, lack of warmth, maybe attachment issues, that is corresponding negatively with some individual vulnerability, often with the child, difficult temperament, diagnose, other factors. And then we could have school issues like truancy or no attachment to school, lack of success in school, social problems in school and in spare time. And on a peer level, you could have risk factors with bad peers, as we say, substance users, engage in criminal activities. And all of this can add up to development of problem behavior with the kid. In some of our cases, we will see the full Monty, as we say. We will see both problems within the family system, the individual, the level, the school level, the peer level, but not in all of our cases. In other cases, we'll have primarily issues or problems that are connected to school, truancy, and then we, of course, have to work with the parenting and the family style. But it's not in all our cases we have problems in all areas. But just to say that this is some of the things that we can meet and that we, in our experience, see can be a part of development of behavior problems. And this is our primary sort of theoretical fundament. It's Bronfenbrenner. He's an old guy. I think he developed his theory back in the 70s. But for us, it's still very, very relevant. And it's the core theoretical fundament of family and network, where we see the individual. This is a Danish drawing, but we have individual relations, meaning family, friends, social network, school, and then society in the last bit. And then some people would say, but how can except, for instance, society be important when we're talking about individual level or family level? It can very much indeed be important, because if there are some political shifts in, for instance, how much social support a family can get, what financial aid they can get, it can indeed influence a family level. And the other way around, if something happens in a school placement, it can affect the family. And I could go on and on about examples of how these systems are interconnected and will influence each other all the time. And that's why we believe that you have to involve and engage all relevant parties when we want to create positive change. apart from engaging all systems, we have a very high and strong focus on decreasing what's negative and strengthening what's positive in a family. That means we have to understand what triggers stress, what's maintaining stress, what's maintaining risk factors, and how can we build on and develop protective factors in the family. So that's the other main focus we have theoretically, and therefore also in our work. And we're talking a lot about safety, and in Family and Network, we are always saying safety first. And that means that if we have safety issues, if we have risk of placement, if we have challenges regarding housing, food, basic need areas, then we always go there first, because that's also a part of the family's stress situation, is that we cannot expect them to engage in therapeutic change if they have an amygdala that's so active because they're afraid of getting kicked out tomorrow, or if they have such high conflict level. We have to deal with these issues first and analyze what's creating these situations, what's actually going on, doing safety planning around it, and making sure that we lower the stress level. And after that, we can work more intensely with whatever is creating the problems in this family system in a more fundamental way. This is our primary, what can you say, like core element. This is the analytical phase model, where we work in these 5 phases. I'm not going to go into depth because I think that when we talk about the case, it will be more clear for us as well how systematic we are actually working. But we also, as you can say, with the phase 1 is considering the safety planning first and foremost. Then we have our data enrollment. We always collect data, intake, outtake, and tracking of efficiency, and doing development plans both on an individual therapist level and on a team level to make sure that whatever education seminars we're doing, we're focusing on what we need to be better at doing. Then we're working with analysis, we're working with interventions and evaluation and adjustment all through treatment until we reach the goals that we've set together with the families. Apart from that, we have, and I know time, Caroline, there isn't much left. Maybe we could, is it okay with 5 minutes from now?
Yes, certainly, because I think this would be very, very good to go through
Yes.
your principles. So certainly take that, yeah.
Good. Yes, because in Family and Network, we have values. That is always in mind that we try to navigate, because you could say that this is the frame, this is our structure, but our values are our actual mindset. And you could say, isn't that a bit fundamentalistic? Yes, it is, and it needs to be, because we are meeting the most troubled and the risk of placement kids and families. So we need to have a strong mindset, human menneskesyn, yeah, in what we do. And for that, we've created these principles, 6 principles that we always try to hold ourselves responsible for, and also try to use in our supervision to guide our thinking and the way we speak about our families in treatment. Principle 1 is see, listen, and understand. And that's what we're actually doing in all of phase of 1. We create engagement, but we also try to understand everything about problem behavior, risk factors, protective factors, the wishes of the family, the wishes of the youth, and we engage them heavily in setting the goals for treatment. Because what we understand is that if we have to have them engaged in the treatment, then we need they need to feel, see, heard, and understand. They need to feel validated, and that they're not unnormal, but that there are perfectly understandable reasons why they have winded up in these very difficult life circumstances. And that speaks with the other principle, life circumstances and resources, is that we need to understand the stress levels and the actual basic systems and situations surrounding the family. And we have to build on their resources. If we only focus on what they're doing wrong, what the problems are, and not on even the small successes, even the small positive things, then we will not have momentum for creating change. We need to focus on finding that, there's a Danish saying where we say, finding the needle in the haystack. We have to really work hard to be extremely focused on resources, because otherwise we're not going to create change. We also have to all the time work to create meaning and motivation. That means I might think that something is a good intervention, but if I'm not skilled enough to actually be to create the same sense of meaning and motivation with the family, then it doesn't matter, because then it's just not going to happen. So my job is always to work with the motivational element, the what's in it for the parents to do something necessary regarding whatever change needs to be made. And I cannot use a lifted finger saying you have to do this otherwise, because that won't make them necessarily motivated. So I have to really work hard to keep everybody motivated. And if they're not, we have a system in Family Network where we use a lot of time in our supervision to actually make analyses saying TX, meaning therapist, has not succeeded in creating engagement meaning. And then we discover the factors on that together in the team and try to work on strategies on how we can find that what's in it for the family. So it's on us. All the time it's on us to create meaning, motivation, engagement. Not to say that then it's the therapist's fault if we don't succeed, but we try, instead of pointing our fingers at the families and the systems, to say, what is it we don't understand? What is it we need to do to get them on board? And then we're focusing very heavily on the tailored and flexibility, meaning that's also moving away from one size fit all thinking and manuals, saying, okay, we work like this. This is the box you have to fit into. We are saying that we draw eclectically on a lot of different tools, but it's our job to make that tool match the family. So that if we have a specific, for instance, concentration time for a specific mom, if she can only concentrate 25 minutes, then I need to adjust our conversations and my interventions to that time frame. If we have cultural aspects, meaning that I might have an idea about what's important, but this is a family of another background, I have to see if I can tailor my intervention so that it matches that specific culture and value system. Because what's important is not that they do what I think is the right thing, but that we get the youth and the kids out of a risk situation where we can stop being as worried as we are right now. So it's actually moving a little bit away from being too focused on norms, but more on, is this a problem? Is this a risk? If no, then don't fix it. Because we have to be very broad in the sense that we try to focus heavily on being as objective and neutral as possible, and that's with the tailoring and flexibility as well. Some of the last principles here is that we also focus heavily on evaluation. Because what we see in a lot of social work is that there's a problem with the let's fix it. Now that we have all this chaos, we have all of these problems, so we do this intervention, we do this, and often it would be the professional that is driving that and maybe is doing something for the family, or at least is having a very significant role in the changing process. I don't know if it's the same in Holland, but as we say, we need to stand next to and behind the family if we want to create the generalization in the treatment. And also we have to be very thorough, meaning that when we have set up an intervention, we will need to spend a lot of time on really following that intervention, meaning positive analyze if it works, yes, celebration, how can we build on this success? And if it doesn't work, a barrier analyze. What went wrong? What was it that we didn't understand? What do we need to adjust? So we're not just throwing that intervention away if it's not working. We're really trying to be very thorough in understanding why it's not working. And then we adjust and we do until. We always do until. So that we don't just leave it there. We don't just leave the family there saying they couldn't. They were just too non-skilled. We would say instead, so how can we make it work? What do we need to adjust to make sure that it will work? So, and the last principle is that we have the quality assurance system saying that, yes, thoroughness, first and foremost. We have to hurry slowly. We have to sit on our hands. We have to not become a part of the chaotic stress system. We have to be systematic in our approach. We have to use our model all the time. So if something, intervention number 3 is not working, we evaluate, adjust, and make an analysis. Why was it not working? And then over again. We drive around in this model until we can say, okay, we've accomplished the goal, or we've come as far as we can with this goal. And not before that, we will be finished. Okay, I'm going to wrap up. I just put in some of these quotes because I think that, and these are from families that we've helped during the last year. And I think they say a lot about how the family is actually experiencing this help as life-changing. And I think you'll see from Mette's case as well that it's probably more to do with the values and the principles and our mindset more than our method. I think that's the primary working element in our treatment. But I could speak forever, and and we don't have time for that.
But thank you very much, Trine. I think this was already quite an amazing overview, and I see in the chat that there's already some questions. So I'm going to take a few, but before we do that, I'm just going to change to Dutch to tell a little bit what we're going to do else, because that might also have an effect on the questions that we'll take up. So I'll come back to the questions. I think it's nice to leave this sheet up with the quotes from the parents, that we can see that while we're speaking. But just for the Dutch participants, ik zie dat er al vragen komen in de chat. Wat ik nog wel mee wil meegeven, zometeen na een hele korte pauze, gaat Mette vertellen hoe zij echt ook deze methode doet in de gezinnen. Dus er zijn wat vragen volgens mij, nou hoe gebeurt het? Ik ga de chat er ook even bij pakken. Dus die vragen komen denk ik terug. Maar er was een vraag, de chat is even ingewikkeld. Maar er was een vraag ook over de duur van de therapie. Die zal ik ook nog even terugvragen aan Trine. En er was een vraag, de eerste vraag van Lieke, over welke expertise zijn vertegenwoordigd en welke kunnen betrokken worden. Die zal ik even gaan vertalen. Ik wil misschien ook even nog aangeven, als jullie vragen hebben over hoe het systeem in elkaar zit, dus hoe zij verwezen worden, die kun je ook bij mij terecht. Dus die kun je ook nog via de mail achteraf. Ik denk dat het nu interessant is om vooral op de inhoud in te gaan. Sorry about that, Trine and Mette, but you know how good it is to change sometimes the translation, because there were a few questions regarding, for example, the time that you spend in families and also what you do in families. But I think Mette is probably going to mention something about that in her talk. But there was a question about, it seems to some people that when you present this, it takes a lot of different kinds of expertise in the families. So do you have all those expertise in your method, or do you sometimes also call on expertise from elsewhere?
Yes, we do both, because as we say, we draw on what we know is best practice. So we have some elements in our model and with our supervisors and in our organizations where we're very strong. We're very strong in working with adolescents, meaning youth that have criminal behavior and substance abuse, and is in high risk more in an external internalizing problem scheme, and that's also one of the cases that Mette is going to talk about. So it's newer to us to engage in younger kids and in more internalizing problem areas, like, for instance, school refusal, social isolation. And because of that, we have decided that we have to focus heavily on improving our knowledge level and collaboration with experts on these areas from other organizations. So we do both. We have a lot of things, knowledge, science within the Method Center that we, of course, use in our seminars. We have a year, over a year course. We have the fundamental training that all the therapists need to go through. That's 5 days, and they'll be examined in that fundamental training. But then we also, during a year, have at least 4 big seminars that is focusing on adding the skills, covering the holes of whatever knowledge and skill level that we might need. And that can differ from year to year. One year it can be school refusal behavior. Another year it can be problems related to lack of attachment, or problems related to problems in the relation between parent and kid. It depends on what our data and experience is telling us that we need to improve our skills in.
Okay, thank you. I think that's answering also another question that was being asked about how you train your social workers and therapists also in the principles. But thank you. So you kind of already said there's quite a lot of focus about internal training as well. There's also a question about how do you measure success, and when do you measure success? Is it only at the end, or is it constantly during? How do you do that?
Well, I'm happy. That's my baby. That's my heart blood, or what you call it, because that's been a very big part of my engagement in Family and Network, is that we focus heavily on data use and quality assurance. So what we do is that in the beginning of treatment, we do what we call enrollment data. And for that, we have created our own method centers scheme where we measure, is the youth in school? Does the youth have absentee from school? What diagnosis, if there is a diagnosis, does the youth have? Is the youth in substance abuse? Is there conflicts at home? All sort of risk areas that we are interested in knowing about, we measure in the beginning. We also have another intake or enrollment, and that's called SDQ, and that's the what's it called?
We know that.
Yes,
we have that in the Netherlands. Yes.
So we do that as well, and that would be the parents and sometimes the kid itself that is doing that. And then we are doing the same schemes with some additional questions when we close, and we measure. Have we actually, on a case level and also on a team and on a national level, created a better situation for the majority of our families? And we are actually doing our first evaluation report here this summer, and it's showing very, very promising results. We sort of knew that, but we're just very, very happy that we now have a documentation showing that this method and this specific way of working is actually a very, very successful method when we're talking about high-risk families. So we're measuring both at the beginning and at the end, and we're using the data to inform our treatment and where we need to develop. And then we also use another tool called feedback-informed treatment. I don't know if you've heard about that, but it's developed by Scott Miller, and it's that you use this very simple session rating scale and outcome rating scale at the beginning and at the end of sessions with families, where you are interested in hearing on 4 domains, if they feel heard, listened to, if the method was matching them. We're basically measuring the alignment and the engagement of the family, and we're following that on a graph where we expect from ourselves that we are actually curious about and trying to implement the information from the parents and from the family during treatment as well, to make sure that we don't lose them. So that's another tool that we're using during treatment to make sure that we have the engagement and alignment with the families.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Trine. I'm a little bit.
Mette, I think Mette had a small comment.
I just wanted to add that as a therapist, when you have the treatment, you set goals for this specific family, and the goals you how do you say it? You're rating them like during the treatment all the time, so you know where is it working, where is it not. So that's also something we do like during the whole treatment.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you, but I'm a little bit conscious about time. And I think also the brain space that is still in everybody's mind. There is in the meantime in the chat, it's quite a discussion about the different experiences that are also there in the Netherlands with including the network and the focus on the network. So maybe Mette, when you're going to speak about your experiences as a therapist, you can take that question aboard and how far you also succeed in continuously or lastingly including the network around the family. I think that would be interesting seeing the discussion that's going on in the chat. Still for, I think, just a little bit, as I said, just a little bit of a break. I would suggest now we take a 5-minute break. We're kind of 5 minutes behind schedule. I think that's perfect on the timing that we have. But and if you can start in 5 minutes, and for all the listeners, Mette is really going to go in about what she does on a daily basis with the family. So I think that would be very interesting. Please also put your questions during her talk, because then we can take that on. So let's break 5 minutes, and let's about 10:20 come back here, and then we're going to listen to Mette. But Trine, thank you very much. So far already very inspiring.
Trine and Mette, you can.
Yes.
When we are starting after the break, you can share your presentation. All right?
Yes.
Okay. And thank you, Trine.
You're welcome. Skal vi bytte plads? Vil du have den her stol i stedet for?
Jeg tror, jeg synes, den er den samme.
Jeg tror, det var fint nok, vi sad med. Jeg kunne mærke, at det fungerede faktisk fint.
Ja, må jeg se. Jeg får
det er jo flere gange, jeg øver jo flere forskellige versioner.
Men det jeg sagde nu, det var overhovedet ikke det, jeg sagde i går.
Nej.
Men der var klokken
Det er så
skulle også
komisk.
10-11 stykker,
Ja.
så, og jeg var bare massivt til den pige.
We're getting a Danish lesson now.
Yeah, you're getting
I forgot to
mute.
Yeah, but we're going to start soon again, so that's okay. Is it okay you switch positions? Yeah, but just wait for everyone. If I see Idike coming back, we can start again. Probably people are listening in as well. Okay, I think we can start again, huh? So, Mette, can I give you the floor? I think you're going to take us now through what you do on a day-to-day basis.
Yes, I will try. So I brought in a case, which was Rikke. I had her like almost when we started. And Rikke was 16 years old at the time. She was living with her mom, 3 siblings, and mom's boyfriend. Mom also had 2 other kids that were taken away from home. And the dad, it was a big mess actually. The dad had been fighting for custody, so she lost custody over one of them. And now they were fighting for the other one. And when we sat down and made the family tree, which we always do in the beginning, it showed that mom had these 6 kids with 6 different dads. So there was like, just to explain, it was quite a chaotic family, and mom was like quite stressed. Overwhelmed, yeah. And Rikke, which was the girl that I was there for, her dad was a drug addict. And I think Rikke talked to her once or twice, but she didn't really know him. Mom's parents died when she was really young. So like when we made the family tree, it really showed that actually the network was quite narrow. There were a lot of people that were dead, and which showed like their family situation. So there was like mom's parents that wasn't there anymore. Then there were these 6 dads, different dads, that were like, most of them, the kids didn't have contact with them, but they were boyfriend. Mom had a boyfriend, which Rikke was not on good terms with. To explain, this mom, she didn't have a job. Her job was basically trying to take care of the kids, and she received social support. So she was available, but also at the same time, she had like the government like breathing on her back all the time. So that's also something we work with, like, so she had time for this treatment. So this was just a little background to understand that that it was quite a chaotic family, and they were living in an apartment in how do you say, in this block building, not in the best area. Yes. And when we started, so now I set up the goals for the treatment, and when you look at them, just to start over, before we got to all of these goals, there were a long period where we collected information. And at first, like, I listened a lot to mom. As Trine said, I was like standing next to her, not trying to make interventions too fast. So before of these goals, I think I worked 1 month with this mom, coming there 2 times a week. She told me her background story, and as we always do, I made a big effort on not judging her. Also, when we did the family tree, and there were 6 stats, I was like, the paper was not big enough, and we just had a laugh about it instead of being judgmental. So I think, yeah, also in our work you can use humor as a good as a good thing. So, but after all of our all of our basic information, we ended up with 5 different goals, and there was a lot of safety issue here, as you can see from the goals. So at the time when we started, Rikke was doing drugs, and she was not she didn't want to stop. She was not there.
She was not motivated.
She was not motivated at all. She was like living her life as she wanted, or as she thought she wanted. Like, it was also having a lot of dangerous risk behaviors. She was selling naked pictures on Snapchat, online. She was selling her body for different things. Like, she wanted a tattoo, so she was selling her body for that. And so there was like a lot of like red alarms. Like, also she was cutting herself.
Mette, not to interrupt you, which I'm doing now, but I see also some questions in the chat. I think maybe, do I understand it right? These goals for treatment were not set by you, right? They were set together with Rikke and her family, or they were set by them.
They were made with me and mom. So me and mom was like collecting the basic information at the beginning, and me and mom were setting these goals. Of course, there were something from the social worker that referred our treatment. She wanted specific goals, and I had them in the back of my mind. But it was me and mom like being agreeing on these goals. That was
also, was there also a place for Rikke in this to talk about the goals?
Rikke was also introduced. I talked to her, but I think all of these goals is made with me and mom. So that's also something about our treatment. Maybe we try to take the young kid in if they want. If they don't, we do it ourselves. So we are not dependent on what the kid wants, because I think at that time Rikke didn't want any of these. I think she wanted all of this, but she was not well, but she couldn't see it. So I was trying to talk to Rikke about it, but she was not motivated for it at the time.
And that's a part of our social ecological understanding of development, is that you might have a girl that's 15-years old, but that doesn't mean that she necessarily knows what she needs and that she's at risk. So that means that we have to use the systems and the families to create changes. And we've seen in hundreds of cases now that it is possible to, from the outside, control a change. And then the youth eventually will adjust to the positive development, because they don't want to. Yes, Rikke said that she wanted this and at the beginning, but of course, over time, as Mette is also going to talk about, she understood herself that there was a better way to live her life.
Yeah, but not at the time, because she couldn't see it, because she was so independent, doing what she wanted, and of course that's what she thought she wanted. Yeah. So I will just go to the next slide, which is actually what did we do? Like, I tried to cope it down to these factors, but of course we did way more, and this is just something I pulled out. And like, doing this presentation, I thought about, can I tell you in a chronologically way what we did, but I can't, because we went back and forth between several goals and between several interventions. So I will tell you, this is actually taken, these factors are taken from the generalization like what we did at the end. So what did work? So this is a lot of factors me and mom did at the end, so she could like highlight once again what did work in this treatment.
Yes, that's a part of the maintaining plan that we always do, is that we sort of evaluate. So what did actually create all these positive changes? What worked? And then we make sure that the parents owns this and understands this to promote that they'll keep on doing these things after we leave. Mette, I remember, if I can just interrupt, that you talked about that in the beginning, this mom didn't want anything but having this kid placed.
Right? Yeah, this was the case where actually everyone wanted her to go on an institution, like taken away from home. And one of the first time I was there with Regge's mentor. She had a mentor she had for several years. And I had my plan. I knew what I wanted to do. But at that meeting, mom had thrown Regge away from home because she's been smoking weed in the kitchen with friends. And Regge's mom was up here like screaming and shouting. And so that's also the thing, like our flexibility. I had my plan, I threw it out of the window. And then we talked, I listened a lot. And then like calming her down, listening, understanding her, trying to like, and then seeing what's in it for her. Like, how can we adjust this so she sees like that she can get something out of it. And at the end of that session, like we ended up that she wanted to give it a chance. I was like, can you give it 2 or 3 months? And then we will see. I just need 2-3 months, and then we will see where we are at. And she agreed on that because she's already been fighting for several years. And I think never underestimate the part of listening, like listening and not judging at all. So she came out with everything, and I understood why she was frustrated. I understood like the need of throwing her out, but also like I couldn't help her if she didn't invite her back home. Yeah. So I just want to go through some of the factors that did work and that are in alignment of, I hope, of some of our principles. So the positive focus, that's something I did like during the whole treatment. So whenever there was something that either mom or Regge did positive, I like highlighted it. We really like put it under a loop, we say, and then like highlight. So what happened? What did you do? To make her see like all the good things, because it's like in our brain, everything that works, we like put it aside and then we focus on the negative. So there was actually, even though Regge had all these problems, she actually went to school more or less every day. And that was like a big thing. So we really highlighted that. And that was like the positive focus was all the way around. And I remember at the end of the treatment, mom started to give me praise back. And that's always when you think, okay, so she understood the principle because now she's giving it back. So that really makes a difference. I think that you not just focus on all the negative, because there was so much like, and the mom was already so much in the negative, and she couldn't see what the things that was working. Then I wrote breaking the barriers between professional and family. I think that's also a big part of our treatment, because we go to their home. And this home was, how do you say, it wasn't the nicest, cleanest place, but you go there and you don't judge and you say yes for coffee. You talk about the cat, you talk about the plans. Also, this mom, she needed to be, I almost every time I drove her to her next thing she needed to go to, or I picked her up from something. And I think that's all of the factors together made me seem more like a professional that was coming there. So I was just sitting on the other side of the table in her small kitchen, and we had coffee while we were talking about all of these things. And I think that's also a quality for our treatment, that they don't come to our office and we sit in our professional chair. And yeah, I think that's that made a big difference. I will just jump around them, because then also the engagement focus. We talked about, that was also a part of the treatment all the time. As I told you about at the beginning, Mom didn't really want this, but I had her to commit to like 2 or 3 months, and then we could evaluate. So that's always a big part of what we do. Then I wrote CM treatment. That's our contingency management treatment. So that's for Rikke was doing drugs. She was doing cocaine, and she was doing weed, hash at the time. And we have a program for that. So I don't know how much to go into that, but we have a whole program for that. And of course, like me and Mom talked about this, she had a big concern about this. And we wanted to start the program really soon, but we couldn't. Rikke didn't want to commit at the beginning. And as Trine said, we tried to find the needle in the haystack. And I was talking to Rikke. I was talking to Rikke's mentor, and I remember this specific episode. We were sitting in her room, like her teenage room, and she told me, like, okay, Mette, we can talk about the cocaine, but you forget about like the hash. I'm not gonna stop. And I was like, okay, I was backing down. Okay, so let's talk about the cocaine. We talked a bit about that. And then I can't remember for how long, but after a while, it showed up that Rikke wanted to go to the psychiatric, because she always felt different. She wanted to know if there was something wrong with her. Like, she always felt that she wasn't like other kids. And we talked about that. And because, of course, Rikke couldn't decide on this herself, but because I also saw some traits that was a bit out of there, we made this agreement. So we used this information. So that's also part of being flexible and like grabbing whatever is there, because then we use this. And I told Rikke, we can arrange this. I can arrange this for you in our treatment.
Going to the psychiatric, yeah.
But then you have to have a clean test. So that was like our way in there. So that's just to tell you that every case is different. That was her motivation for like for going on this committing to this treatment. I also did continuity management treatment where the kid didn't want. So there are different ways to do that. But of course, if you can get them motivated, it's always better. Yeah.
Just to say, if I may, just a small sentence connected to the CM treatment. That is actually an American program that is that have some, just to say it in very short, very efficient and well-proved elements of doing regular testing, using vouchers, rewards to put something in place of the drugs, and to use cognitive tools like ABC, what triggers, what's the positive consequence, what's the negative. And that's a quite individualistic treatment, but we combine that with always having the parents involved, being a participant in the meetings with the youth so that they can support the family drug management plan. And we also work on a broader analyze on substance abuse behavior, where we try to find as much screen time as possible to do something about maybe if boredom is a problem or a lack of activity, then we try to put something in place. We try to strengthen the social ecology. We try to work around the substance abuse in combination with using the CM treatment specifically. So that's
and actually just to support that, in this case, I used Rikke's mentor, because Rikke was really connected to this mentor. It was her best friend, as she said. So I taught him to use the tools as Trine does, for CM treatment. So I taught him. That's also a part of being flexible, because she wasn't. She thought I was too much talking to mom too much. So instead of me trying to force this on her, I taught the mentor to do it. So mentor did that, and then like we all sat together in the kitchen, Regge with her mentor and me with mom, and talked about it around. So that's also the flexible part. I will jump to, I wrote clear rules, which seems easy. In this case, it wasn't. When I got there were rules like all over the place. And as I wrote underneath, well-known rewards and consequences. This mom, because she got so frustrated many times, she set up like, consequences at the moment, like, and really big consequences. Like when I started there, I remember that because Regge did so much bad things that mom didn't want, I think it was like, you are losing your phone for 3 months, or you have to stay at home for 3 months. So when I say, when it's written clear rules and fitted consequences and rewards, it took a lot of effort. It took a lot of time for mom to give that up, because it's like she wanted it to be fair, because Regge broke the rules so many times, and mom wanted fairness. And I had to explain her like that the rewards and consequences needed to be fitted for Regge not to give up, because like losing your phone for 3 months or having to stay at home for 3 months for someone that is 16 years old, that's not going to happen. So she was just breaking it all the time. So it didn't work. So that was like a big thing in our treatment, and having mom to like give it up. I needed to listen and understand her frustration for her to like narrow it down. And I think at the end we narrowed it down to like, if she was sleeping at a friend's and without mom's allowance, it was 3 days without a phone and 3 days that she had to stay at home, which is quite a lot. But that was our like compromise. Yeah, exactly. And underneath this it says praise and recognition, because that was also a big part, because this family was so chaotic. They was only focused on what Regge did wrong. So I think actually praise and recognition was so important to all of our 5 goals that we set up. I think that's almost what made the change, because Regge was a girl that made this big drama. She made like big stories like all her life, and mom didn't understand, and she was so mad about it. And Regge was like breaking the rules. Also, she said, as I told you, she said she did cocaine and weed, but the test did never show anything besides weed. So I think it was a part of her being dramatic, but as it showed, like mom was really flat in her emotional life. So we talked a lot about like, how can you see Regge? How can you like give her some praise when it goes well? What can you say, like down to like really down to like sentences? What can you say? Like, how can you say positive things to her? How do you even see it? So that was also a big part in this treatment. Then I wrote good collaboration between mom and school, and good collaboration between mom and mentor. Because when I started, none of these people were working together. Like the school was, Regge was actually going to school, but a lot of the time she was running away from there, and she told the school one thing and mom another thing. And the school and mom didn't talk together. So that's also like during the treatment, we got them to talk together. So Regge could not do that anymore. So if Regge left the school called to mom, or the other way around if there was something. So that just eliminated that chance of Regge to like go around it. And also when I started, Regge had her mentor for 3 years, I think, before that. but Mensa didn't speak to mom. Like they didn't know what each other were doing. So he was actually more or less a friend. But now we included him in this treatment. He knew the goals, so he was backing up the goals. He knew the substance abuse treatment. He was backing up that. He was also, I taught him some of the same skills as I taught mom. So how do you see Rikke's positive behavior? Like zoom it up, like make it bigger. And all of that made such a big change. Like when I saw Rikke after some months, she was shining and glowing, and she was so proud of herself. A big thing we also talked about with the rules was mom having to stick to the rules. Because before we came in, what was happening, mom set up rules, and then Rikke was trying to break them until the end where mom gave up. So that always, undermined her own rules. And she had a hard time sticking to the rules. And that's also where our 24/7 phone came in, because actually mom called our phone and we helped her stick to the rules. Like we guided her, like, what's going on now? Why is it hard for you to stick to it? And helped her, like, all the time to stick to what we agreed on. And sometimes
Mette, you haven't mentioned, I don't think it has been mentioned before, but this 24/7 phone, but you have a system where you're in reach all the time?
Yeah, I think Trine, but there's a lot of information, so we understand. All of the time when the families is in our treatment, there is an emergency phone they can call. So it's either me, it's my colleagues in our small team. So they can call 24 hours, all of the time they're in the treatment. Yeah, and
it's very important.
It's very important, and if I set up some specific, like in this case, if we are working with a specific rule, the other therapists know what we are doing. So mom doesn't have to tell it like all over again. She will talk to another therapist that knows exactly what's going on. And that's a really, really important thing. Yeah.
And that's because the step between phase 2, analyze, and 3, intervention, and 4, evaluation and adjustment is a fragile and extremely sort of intense period where we need to be sometimes the frontal loops of the parents to sort of work with their calmness, work with their, as Mette say, remembering the different strategies until they're internalized. So we sort of like, we want them to control or support and adjust their kids from the outside. We're sort of doing some of the same in the process of change.
Yeah, and we are actually doing that.
It was a remaining question from the previous from your presentation, Trine, and from the chat. Can you tell something about the time investment? Because I think you have mentioned it, but it does sound like it takes time. This is not overnight that you make these changes. So how long, for example, have you been working with Rikke and her mom?
I think this family, we ended up working for 8 months. And that was 2 times a week. So that's also a big investment for mom. And to just to say something more about that, like mom had this, the government breathing down her back because
municipality.
Yeah. And they wanted to put her back to work. And we participated in there was a big network work meeting where they were also listening to us, and we had them like to hold the horse and told them that it was important that mom invested her time in her kids instead. So we are also able to do some of that. So it gave her more time before she had to go back to work. And that was really, really important.
Yeah, and this is something you're hitting on. I think the people that are listening, that is still quite a struggle in the Netherlands. The cooperation between not just the disciplines working more in the social issues with the families, but also in all the issues around it. So the financial issues, the housing, and in this sense, you mentioned the social security. I think it's good to mention that I think in Denmark there is a bit of a switch in that it's not perfect. But I think there seems to be a willingness, right, among the municipalities that at least give parents this time to, or these families this time to be involved in making the change, even if that means temporary out of work.
Out of work, yeah. But just to make sure that we're not painting a picture perfect, because it does take a lot of engagement work on behalf of our supervisors and therapists to motivate the job center and the municipal to give us that 3 to 4 months to create calmness and a better fundament in the family, because that's sort of working with the cost benefits of saying, okay, we can push her. But the chances of her showing up or it being a success is minimal, because we have a very critical situation at home. So the chances of success of getting her back to work, if we collaborate on a time plan, is much larger than you enforcing that she must at the current time. So it's speaking very much about pros and cons with the job center and the municipal as well, and also making clear agreements on, okay, so when will she be expected to join the job center and go into work again? So that we're just not saying, so we need whatever time, but that we also try to obligate ourselves and the parents to a time frame where we will at least evaluate and talk about, so how far are we? Yeah. And when will this be realistic? So that we try to give something back as well.
And I think once again, standing next to mom, like supporting her perspective is a big thing for this mom in this case, and in all of the cases, because most of the time, like the system is like pushing and pushing. The school wants change now, like everyone wants change, like immediately. Also the one that referred, like I can get like pushed from the social worker that referred my treatment, and they can be like, so how far are you, when do you think you're la la la, and it takes time, and we need, as Trine said, we need to like hurry slowly. But that can be really hard for because if I do it, if I go to the school, if I do all of this, it will fall apart when I'm away. So
yeah. And that might be a nice way to go into for the last few minutes that we have remaining. You finished with this family and with Rikke. And can you tell a little bit about what you do, how you finished off, and how you made sure that these changes that you were able to install in this family were sustainable?
Yeah, so we did the CM treatment, and actually Rikke, after doing her first clean test, she was clean the rest of the time, which was like really impressive. So for that part, we did an how do you say trapping down? You don't say that, like
de-escalating, no, not de-escalating, decreasing
the testing. So we made a plan for that, like how often is mom gonna test, and it was like really wide. So it was, I think, 6 months after we stopped, but then at the end it was just once a month, and we highlighted, we went through the whole plan, so if it collapsed, mom could start all over again. We found testing tools online that was really that had the same how do you say, levels of testing as we use, but for mom to buy, that was not too expensive. So I taught her how to use the whole treatment if it collapsed at some point. And then we highlighted, we made a positive fit. We made a positive analyze. So what made all of these changes? And this is, as I told you, it's almost the one that you have here in front of you. So I sat down with mom, not once, not twice, like a lot of times. What made the change? And then we highlighted that, we wrote it down, we went over it over and over again. So she knew, okay, so if this collapse, if we start being in conflicts again, if Rikke is running away from home, what do I do? So we went through it like over and over and over again, and we also went through like what can go wrong. Yeah.
So it's extreme thoroughness in making sure who's doing what, if this happens, who is the support system in this particular situation, so that we make sure that they feel, and you could see that from some of the quotes as well, and I know you have a few quotes as well from this mom, that they feel secure in what they need to do and who's helping them in specific situations on the long run after we exit. We spent maybe 10 meetings just making sure that everybody is all set before we exit.
Yeah, it's like there's this
from your sheet, it also shows out that the systems around it were also part of it, and they must have also been part of it in the finishing off of your particular intervention.
Yeah, they also they know
and the mentor.
Yeah, they know how to support. So we make it more see-through. Mm-hmm. They know what mom is working with. They know what mentor is working with, and the other one knows what the school is working with and what are the plans and rules there.
Mm-hmm. And as you said, actually, we talked about in this specific case, and Mette was like, "Damn, it's annoying that in this particular case, the private network was not that influential because they were non-existent due to all the deaths and the drug abuse and stuff that's been going on. But as you said, that you've had a lot of other families where the grandma, the uncle, the whatever was a big part of both the interventions, but also the maintaining work afterwards.
Yeah. So you have to work with whatever is there.
Mm.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Thank you very much. Maybe that is a nice and maybe also a very simple way of ending with saying you have to work what's there, but you have showed in your talk that there's a lot of underlying principles that I think make us aware about what is there. Mm. I'm just looking, because we really need to finish off in terms of time. I thought there were no more questions from the chat, but there is one question left, and I think it would be interesting also maybe to finish off to both of you. Is one of your goals, is one of the ways you're working also is to work towards increasing the network, and here in particular was also mentioned, for example, involving neighbors. Is that one of your leaving aims, that you leave at least, like for example this particular mother who had a very small network to start with? That was the aim also, to increase her support network.
So whatever is important for that family, for this mom, it wasn't especially important with neighbors, or she went to this how do you say, bingo? I don't know, bingo. Like this game, and that was her network. That was where she relaxed. But I had another family where we worked with this treatment, and the kid was so outgoing, like screaming, yelling, shouting, like throwing stuff. We had to include the neighbors so they knew what was going on, because if mom had to change something there, she would react even more, and so the neighbors needed to know. So that's a case where we included the neighbors. So it depends totally on the specific case.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Mette, for giving us this insight, and I think it made what you introduced, Trine, and make more come to life as well. Unfortunately, we really do have to come to a closing. How nice it would be if we could really exchange, right? If you could, like, if some professionals from the Netherlands can come to you and the other way around, but hopefully something like that can be arranged in the future. But I think for now this worked, having you online all the way from Denmark. Where were you actually sitting? You haven't said that. In which city were you?
We are sitting in Aarhus, which is the second largest city in Denmark, in my office. Mette is a therapist in Randers. She's actually used to live in Aarhus, which is Randers is close to Aarhus, but it's in Jutland.
We were sitting all over the place in the Netherlands. So thank you very much for that. I'm going to change to Dutch now for just finishing off, but we will see each other afterwards. Ik wil jullie in ieder geval allemaal heel erg bedanken voor het luisteren en het meedoen in de chat. Ik kan me voorstellen dat dit heel veel vragen oproept en ook vragen om met elkaar over te reflecteren. We hebben een volgende sessie op 4 juni en ik denk op de een of andere manier wel heel graag een brug willen slaan met wat we vandaag hebben gehoord, wat het heeft opgeroepen bij jullie. En om daarover door te praten hoe we het ook mee kunnen nemen. In ieder geval voor nu ontzettend bedankt voor het meedoen. Ik heb al gezegd, als jullie echt specifieke vragen hebben over hoe zit het nou precies in Denemarken, hoe moet ik ze plaatsen. Mijn e-mail staat in deze, die komt nu in de sheet voorbij. Dus die ben ik zeker bereid om te beantwoorden. Maar voor nu hoop ik dat we jullie met hele andere inspiratie weer verder hebben kunnen geholpen. En in ieder geval dat jullie een fijn lang weekend nu ingaan. Dus bedankt en tot ziens. We zien jullie snel weer terug bij de volgende sessie.